Well, hey there, and good morning. Welcome to Resi Live. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Happy Tuesday, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Nate. Happy Tuesday.
Thank you. And
it is a Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday this time.
Yes.
Not that we ever fake it.
No.
And
we never sim
live.
anything.
Never.
All right. Why do we always do this? We always leave our guests hanging on the TV screen while we just kind of banter back.
That's fair. While we bicker. Today, we have the great honor of welcoming to the program Mr. Jesse Maitland. We need a sound effect, applause from,
definitely.
If you don't know, a video broadcast manager at Bethel Church down in Redding, California.
Up in Redding, California.
We hold titles pretty loosely over at Bethel, so.
Yeah, just go with the spirit. Sorry, I don't know if I should say that.
Well, you
Works
did.
for me, so.
You did.
Man, dude. We've been wanting to talk with you for a while, Jesse. So I'm really glad to have you on the show, man.
Thanks, man.
Let's see, Daniel.
Yes, I've got questions.
You have questions.
I've got questions.
We also Daniel's also. I like Daniel's the one that's switching today too.
Yes,
both of our guys that we usually recruit for doing the video switching are out today. So if you see Daniel typing,
hey, it's okay. It's okay. You know, in the world of production, you wear many hats.
You wear many hats. Absolutely.
You just don't know which one you're going to wear that day.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Let's dive in.
All right. So, Jesse, thank you again so much for being here. A little teaser. We'll tease out some stuff here. Jesse and I just got done recording his podcast episode, which was super fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be releasing, I think, not in October. It'll be November, I believe. So stay tuned for that. And that's my podcast plug.
There it is. You got to have at least one.
It's over.
May or may not have shed a tear. So
maybe keep them in suspense, Jesse. Keep them in suspense. Okay, but so the main difference between our podcast and these lives is like on these lives we really want to get nerdy. Mm-hmm. We want to talk about what the gear is that Bethel's using, why they're using it, what's going on behind the scenes, and what's your role in that. And so, can you just kind of talk us through what production is looking like at Bethel right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, we're definitely in need of some upgrades, and I think we'll definitely see some this year. But some of those upgrades that we have gotten have been definitely the red Komodos. They definitely get a lot of the attention. So that's pretty exciting. But we still use original Ursa Mini 4.6Ks Gen 1, so the first version, for a lot of our heavy lifting, especially for the speaking element of our worship or of our Sunday service.
Really?
And we do use quite a bit of pockets, all Pocket 6Ks. For like our educational stuff that happens in other facilities. So we're pretty heavy on Blackmagic still.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to talk Komodo. That seems to be, call it trendy, call it whatever you want, but seeing a Komodo in a worship environment is like, to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So talk to us a little bit about, what was behind that decision, what challenges maybe have you come across so far, and how are you guys kind of overcoming them and using that marvelous piece of gear?
Yeah, true to our culture, we like to kind of be ready for anything. And we like things to be on the fly. So we want to be able to respond to whatever's happening. And so we don't do things like camera control. I'm trying to get some tally back in the mix because it helps our speakers. But in large part, we expect our camera ops to do everything manually. All adjustments are manual. So that includes setting color profiles and setting exposure and focus, the whole deal. What that does for us is it gives us lots of flexibility to make decisions creatively, even in the moment. And some of the things that make kind of our broadcast look unique is the versatility in lenses that we can just swap out on the fly.
Yeah.
Because we're not like locked into something. And so on our Komodos, we'll do a lot of, we have a couple RF lenses that we play with, but in large part, we're just rotating. And it's ironic, we don't use the same lens in the same positions. Sometimes certain ops prefer something different. And so we've really learned to optimize, not just by shooter, but position and the shooter, which is kind of fun.
Do you guys do that like mid-service?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's and one of the benefits of being DSLR is it's all muscle memory, so you memorize that.
Wow.
Which is exciting and fun, and you'll see we do quite a bit of lens effects as well. If I suggest too many things, people will try it, and maybe you shouldn't. But but we do play with a lot of lens effects with like using the fishing line and using different prism types, for reflections and stuff. Oh. What people don't realize is we have no haze. We don't use haze.
What?
On a Sunday? Yeah. That was a decision really based on like, we're really known for that glory cloud thing. Yeah. That's one of the big things that people talk about. And so we just didn't want people to think we were faking it.
Sure.
Right.
So, we just kind of just don't use haze because of that. And so a lot of our fixtures are like washy. And so you don't really see beams and stuff. So it really has changed and had a major impact on the way we approach our production on a Sunday. Yeah. And because we don't have beams, we really depend on lens effects to really fill in and create that depth and that sense of space, I guess. So we play with a lot of flares.
Well, man, you guys do that really well. I love how innovative that you always are and creative with achieving that look. That I think is very iconic to what you guys do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's always cool. We got to get down there sometime, and actually, I'd love to see how you actually pull it off in that way. But really cool stuff you guys do. What was kind of like? What would you say? Going back to the this is more. We talk about the podcast being the heart of it, but like, what's the heart of that creativity for y'all? Why is that important? Oh my goodness, do you see our camera right now? What? It's like bugging out on focus. That was weird. Sorry.
This is live, folks.
What's the initiative? What's the intention for you guys? And this is just something like, and maybe it's even changed with COVID too, and maybe we'll get into that too to talk about how COVID has changed some of the purpose of what y'all do in that time. But what was the main reason for you guys to really start being creative with how you film your environment that way?
Yeah, first I'll say the Komodos are not necessarily the most practical choice, but they are a creative choice for us. Because we're not locked into anything, we're able to just change things as we need. But we're trying to aim for a lighter camera setup that would work on stage, but also work on our other shoots and provide a more creative post workflow for special projects. So that was definitely a big push behind it. And the build quality of Red is just so good.
Yeah.
Especially that Komodo. It's a tough little camera. Some of our motivation though is we're really just after this cinematic experience. And one of the technical aspects is, shooting 24 or 23-9.8 is kind of difficult. Like Panasonic wants to do it PSF versus PFS. So the frame ordering can kind of be an issue sometimes. Canon plays really well with that, and Red plays really well with that format. The other cameras don't really. So if you're in a Blackmagic ecosystem, that's a technical limitation where it's really difficult to run 24 frames.
Yeah. Have you guys, I take it you're doing 24. Have you always done 24? Was that something more recent?
No, we switched that. I can't remember exactly when, but we definitely got rid of some Sony camera bodies and used the Ursa Minis because of that. Like we literally switched from a Sony high-end broadcast camera to a Blackmagic camera, which is considerably cheaper, because it was easier to work with. So kind of weird, kind of crazy, but we were really after a specific look, and we're calling it a cinematic broadcast is kind of the look that we call it. It's ironic though, in the industry, I think even in the last like just basically COVID, there's a lot of companies who had money invested in cinema glass. And when the economy changed, there's been this huge boom of people repurposing cinema gear into a live broadcast. So this trend is really taken off. And so you're starting to see this. And I think even the Fujinon lens, like they're making a PL-based box lens, which I think is going to be released this year, which is the first box lens that I'm aware of that's designed for a PL mount, and which is a big deal because that really opens up this whole other world of cinema bodies being used for broadcast.
Absolutely.
Wow, yeah, it's huge. I'm excited about it.
When we see, I think I even saw a while ago, like somebody's like GH4 or something mounted to a box lens. They had like 6 different adapters.
Yep.
They're like, you're only losing a couple lap stops or something in the process, probably.
I'm not sure if I even answered the question. What was the question?
Oh, no. So the question was, and I think it's cool because like you were talking about that flexibility that the Komodo brings to the cinema broadcast that you guys are trying to do. Where does that license for creativity come from, at Bethel? Like, has that always been a pursuit of the house, or has it, has that kind of morphed over time to realize like, creativity is, a staple of what you guys are pursuing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a place of tension at times. Every director has their preferences. Sometimes it's creatively motivated. Sometimes it's technical. There was a season where we were in 29, and it definitely changed the way our broadcast looked. And that was mostly a technical reason. And broadcast loves it. Like when you're dealing with people like TBN or God TV or something, they all pretty much want 29. And, for the creative look that we're looking for, which is a more cinematic look, it really just doesn't work. It needs to be in 24. So yeah, there's definitely been some back and forth on that for quite a bit of time. And I think most people will lean to 224 eventually. I know it hasn't been easy. Things like LED walls and your shutter angle get complicated. So it really does not make it easy. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Lots of technical issues there. And it actually, a lot of people don't know this, but most of the time, most cameras will double in latency because of 24. Just because it's not a native format.
Yeah.
So all kinds of technical things we could go off on that.
Do you guys do IMAG in the room? Is that latency an issue?
We do, and we work really hard to minimize latency. We've worked really hard to keep it to a minimum for sure. So the least amount of adapters we can do. One of the big things for us is just switching to like a router-based model, no daisy chaining, everything goes to one source, using something like a Blackmagic Video Hub. And we have a separate switcher for our front of house, or in the room, I guess.
Yeah.
So we switch what's on the screens based on, it has its own dedicated switcher. So
that's cool.
We try to make everything to where if it's going to have latency, it all matches.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah.
So it's definitely a big part of our consideration, but.
Right. Okay. So you were talking about how you guys have, your glass varies by position and operator and all that different stuff. But walk us through like what a typical camera plot looks like, in the room, just for a typical Sunday, not a special event or recording or anything like that. What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah. So just to back up a tiny bit,
sure.
We want the cinema broadcast look, but we're really wanting an immersive experience. We want the people viewing to feel like they're in attendance or in the room. So we're trying to balance this coverage where we're covering it, having good coverage, to also like being creative, giving people these detail shots that are beautiful and cinematic, but also immersive, which is in the room. So camera placement is a big deal, not just to our cinema broadcast look, but also the experience in the room translating to our viewers. Obviously audio is a huge part of that, and we work really hard at creating a consistent experience with lots of like crowd mics and lots of involvement from the congregation, but also our camera placement. We always are planning. We're trying to plan to. We're not very good about not being in each other's shots, so that's always kind of a bummer. But
Sure.
I think right now we have our main follow cam. We have a Dana dolly, which is in the house. That gives us a huge sweeping crowd movement.
Okay.
And then we have a roaming crowd person on wireless. And then we have 3 people on stage. Sometimes, like last night, we actually had 4 people on stage, which was quite a different experience. Really made for a lot more interesting crowd shots. So the whole crowd thing is a real art, because you don't want to get super tight shots of people's face,
Right.
You don't want to get burned. It's like every director knows, like the moment you take the beautiful shot, their hand goes down,
Right.
or they
they give you a nice
stare at
glare.
the camera.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of people don't talk about the rules of like directing, but like the 180-degree rule and stuff like that. But I'm trying to like get it more balanced, so that when we do cut between all these different cameras, they're strategically placed.
Interesting.
So there's more transitions between the shots.
I've never heard of the 180-degree rule for live before. That's an interesting
that whole flip-flop thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You wrap around too far and it can be a little jarring and stuff. But the camera, so we've been optimizing our positions to where it just makes for a better cut. And you'll notice in our cutting now, because we have that Dana dolly in its position, you'll see like the Dana dolly kind of wide, and then you'll see a detail shot. And we're creating like these anchors in our cut where we can kind of transition and weave between shots to give it kind of a more like appeal to more of the broadcast standards without sacrificing what we're doing. But what we've learned is that it's really engaging a younger audience as well as the older audience. And so we were getting a lot of feedback from the more mature people in the congregation, where they're struggling with some of that camera movement. And so we're creating some space now that we're open and people are coming into service, where we're re-including them back into the experience. And it's really having a pretty dramatic experience.
Okay. So
a dramatic impact.
Yeah. So, okay, talk to us. You talked a lot about this idea of involving the crowd and the congregation, and that really, creating a pivotal kind of like shot anchor point in your cut. What happened during COVID? What adjustments did you guys have to make when, crowds weren't an option?
Actually, it's a fun one to talk about. I know in this office, actually, we were Drake Kelch and his brother Andrew, who's also here. We were trying to think about what do we do to keep it interesting. We didn't want to push pause, and we didn't want to step back. We wanted to make sure we kept our foot on the gas. And so we saw this as an opportunity to really push into a new space of creativity. And so we really pushed, like, how do we maximize what we have, and how do we create something new and inspiring? And it was definitely a collaboration, but that box set got a lot of attention. We call it the box set, but it's actually on our YouTube channel. You can kind of get the tour of how it was laid out. But it completely changed our shot arrangement and our camera movement, because now we were shooting from essentially a 360 square box of LED wall with a scrim on top to create like a lid. And we were like, well, we only have these little cracks that we can shoot through. And we took our entire stage and just created 4 walls.
Huh.
And so that was our set that we used for most of COVID. And it was somewhat strategic. So even when we started to have a small audience, we took the one wall out, and that way we could kind of like, it was almost like there's some visual storytelling in the design where it kind of just opened up as like a sign of, this is the same set, we're still in COVID,
Right.
but now we're starting to open. So we like little things like that, like how do we like start trickling it in and like protecting it, and not just redoing things for the sake of redoing it, but making it more intentional.
Yeah. Has that affected your, now that I'm assuming, are you guys fully open now as a building?
Yes, we are.
So did that change, any of the trajectory of some of the things that you guys had planned, or
Yeah, like what stuck around post-COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, that set really brought in some new skill sets. We definitely started shooting differently, and it was wild. I mean, it was fun. It was beautiful. It stretched us in some new creative ways, and I think it inspired a lot of other people too to like put their pedal, put their foot on the gas, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it was fun. But when we transitioned back into a live audience, it was quite jarring. We had been so focused on being macro on our shots that the transition of, hey, we need to open up and incorporate everything now, was really foreign. Like we had settled into a new normal, and it wasn't the easy thing, but we finally have settled into something that's like pre-COVID again,
Yeah,
sure.
So I feel I'm really feeling really good about what we have now. Not only did we loved what we were doing, but it required a really high skill set of our camera ops.
Mm-hmm.
And from a church perspective, you got people at different skill sets. And so what we have now is a much more inclusive experience for viewers and people in the room. But it's also a more sustainable model now, to where we don't have a superstar camera op. We have an entire team that's more collective and cohesive. Like everybody's equally important.
Yeah. That's cool.
So I guess in that case, like that was a huge shift.
Yeah. Yeah. They became a much bigger part of the experience of making it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What's something, Jesse, like what is one of the, as video engineering manager, video broadcast manager, what's like one of the things that you are most proud of that you guys have implemented from a production or experience perspective at Bethel?
Something I'm most proud of. I think I think across the board, our team collaborates at a high level. It's not just so-and-so's job. It's a collective approach. We've reached a point where we've all really like mastered what we're doing. So we don't have to communicate as much, which is really nice. But to get there required a lot of shared vision, shared goals, people being on the same page. And I don't think like motivating people isn't really a thing for us because we're all really motivated. So I'm really proud of like the health and the motivation and the conviction that we all carry. And I think it shows in our technical approach. Like I think every single technical position that we have is operating at some level of a handicap. Lots of people think we have a huge budget and really like all kinds of resources, but we're wheeling and dealing and trying to get the best value that we can, just like everybody else. And for the kind of work and the influence that we have, we don't have a lot. We don't have extra, And so I think we've really taken some older gear or maybe less modern gear and really maximized what we have. And I think that's a big deal. We've maximized our people. We've maximized our gear.
Yeah. What about like, what's an area that that you guys are really looking to take the next step in, or that you're excited about in an area that you want to dive into more in the future?
Personally, I'm really invested in switching to a 4K model. 4K is really important to me, really for a legacy perspective. We have some pretty important people heroes of the faith, and a lot of people just coming through our house. And I really want to make sure that we're capturing something that's going to last and be there for the generations. And so I'm trying to push the 4K agenda.
Yeah. That's a really interesting thought. Even just, a lot of people do it just because, like, hey, we want to be doing 4K because that's what's cool and that's what looks best, even though, like, most people, watching it on their phones in 144 anyway, we have the data on that. But, like, I do think there is a lot of value in thinking about that just from a strictly archival perspective, that, like, hey, we're going to have this for a while. We want to shoot it, like, at the best format that we can right now.
Yeah.
So
how deep does that, vision go, Jesse? Like, are you hoping for or envisioning, like, 4K, not just archival, but also, distribution and, in-room 4K experiences? Like, is that all encompassing, or are you more so just like, I want to make sure that what we shoot is archived in 4K for, like how you said, the generations to come?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely pushing the agenda, but that's part of being in a technical role, pastoring the technology, as we talk about, foreseeing the need or anticipating the need before it is a need, right? And so I see that being really important. It's not really their job to understand why. So I'm definitely here to educate and promote that agenda. Bill, he really has a passion for the historical aspects of past revivalists. And so he actually has a whole library of content he's been consuming or curating for several years now, of just artifacts and journals and books and some stuff that's original. And so, this General's Library project is, in his heart, that we would have these resources available to people. And so it's definitely a consistent message for the house of, like, we want to honor the past and learn and take what we can from those experiences. And so resourcing people with all that content is definitely a part of the message of the house. So 4K, man, let's do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so I feel like we've tackled, the video side of Bethel, and yet there's this other side, the audio music side of Bethel that maybe a lot of people are more familiar with. What's your involvement with Bethel Music, and how does Bethel Production and Bethel Music kind of like walk this journey together? Like how you said, having this unbelievable amount of impact and influence on the culture that we experience, and you guys are living it. So how do you guys work that out together?
Yeah, just so people know, Bethel Music is a music label. They do carry the Bethel name, but it is a separate leadership team, and a separate structure. So it is a separate label. We work on a lot of their projects, and they have a small technical and creative team, but we support them quite often with a lot of projects. So any of the gatherings, events that are streamed on their channel, and any of the live concert films that you'll see, our team is actually is working in some capacity, not just as cam ops, but sometimes, like, I'm off. Their office is actually just like a block away from me, and so oftentimes I'm consulting and doing that kind of thing. So definitely a collaboration, and I think one of the things that we're learning, and sometimes we have to relearn it, but learning what it means to have technical people that carry the house's message or the house's culture, that has a pretty big impact on some of those products and things that they're making.
Right. It's true.
So it's fun. It's a privilege. It's wild. It's exciting. So our latest, actually, we're just now releasing our new album, Homecoming. And so that's kind of dripping out right now on social media. The album's out. The videos are coming out, a new video every week. That was definitely a fun project. Definitely a collaboration. Luke Manwaring is a part of our production team, but he's also he was the director on that project as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How long was that process in the making, or that project?
Gosh, I mean, honestly, it was in the making for a long time, but the decision and the vision for it got changed so many times, again, because of COVID. We had some pretty epic things planned, and then at the last minute, we had to do something completely different. And I know that Jen really wanted this thing to not be about the content and about the visuals, but about the people, about the worship and the actual like coming together aspect of group worship. So it's a cool album. I mean, one of the fun things is there's no color value changes. It's all luminosity changes. So it's a bunch of white light. And it's quite dynamic. It's the first time we've had one, two, three. Yeah, we had 3 dolly tracks.
Wow.
Two of them were Defy, so they were motorized. And then the one I was on was like the main follow cam. And so I was actually using a ped on top of a like a doorway dolly on tracks. So that was kind of wild.
That sounds fun.
Oh man, it was super fun. It was really fun. I think I kind of crushed someone's feet. The edges of that doorway dolly. Someone definitely walked back too far and got hit, but but I had a really awesome lens. Gosh, what was it? See, when you're on an interview, you can't think of things like numbers,
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right.
But we had a full, like Canon sent us a whole Cinema Prime kit for a Red Raven package.
Oh,
and
wow.
then, so we did all Red Raven, and I was using Cinema Zoom lens. We had a couple Cinema Zoom lenses from Canon. So it was really beautiful. And this one you'll see, like, we definitely changed up our style a little bit. And let the energy be in the room with the people. So we were definitely like going for a different energy. And you'll see a lot of dolly movements, and I did quite a bit of zooms, and zooms has pretty much been a no-go zone, but zooms have their place if you know how to use them. Sure. And I think we did a good job. So.
Yeah. Next, you're going to be bringing back the cross dissolve. I'm just kidding.
No. I mean, secretly, I do want to have one of those, like a vintage cut,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Like have a night where we just go all old school.
Oh, please. I'm in it. I'm there.
Remind me to turn my TV off.
Yeah.
No,
that was like one of my favorite things from the most recent Frozen movie, right? Was the 80s. I was like, I feel like I'm watching a Michael W. Smith video here. You remember
the power ballad?
No, was that it? The Christoph and whatever. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Well, Jesse, thanks so much, man, for taking the time. We've spent a lot of time with you today, so really value you, man, and your experience and just sharing with our family. One question that I always love to kind of leave with too is there's a lot of churches out there that Bethel is kind of a standard for them. If they look up and they say, man, we want to be where they are. And we want to be doing some of these same creative things. What would you say to encourage, somebody who's a volunteer or maybe a technical director at a smaller church that wants to start taking steps towards being more creative with their experience in the same way that you guys have?
Oh yeah, this is a great one. The podcast episode we just recorded will be really great in answering a lot of the questions of why and sort of the motivation behind it all. But pretty much, I operate things with a pretty deep conviction. Like I have a personal calling and a conviction for the work that I do. So who I am and the message my life is really in alignment with the work that we do. So that helps. But I would encourage people, don't just create an epic an epic studio for no reason. Like I think we lead with content. If there's a why behind those decisions, it's easier to sell it to leadership.
Yeah.
If you can say you're partnered with their vision and their influence, you're saying, hey, this piece of gear is going to help us do this thing and it's going to have this result. Then you're building a healthier start where you're not building ego. You're naturally drawing out the deeper things within your staff and really showing them how you are a resource in their environment. And I think that's the dialogue you want to have is, hey, we're actually here for you and we're working together to accomplish or reach people. And this is the message and how we need to do it. So,
Yeah.
You know, because I think a lot of us get stuck in the lack. Like we think in the space of, I don't have this, so I can't do it. And the reality is most of us experience lack or a lack of resources because we don't have the right vision. Mm. And so if you can really get that nailed down, you'll find opportunity opening up for you.
Love that. Lead with the why. Very cool. Well, Jesse, again, thank you so much, man. Hope to talk to you again soon. And thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks. Hold on. I just got to switch it.
There it is. Later.